drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor early in the morning?
I'm Paul Bennett at Downeast Thunder Creations here in Millbridge, Maine. We're located along Maine's Bold Coast, not very far from the U.S.-Canadian border. I'm preparing to start fitting the bottom panels onto the hull. And the bottom panels are 3/4 of an inch thick, or roughly 18-19 millimeter. When I screw into the keelson and I screw into the struts for the ballast keels, the twin keels, this is fairly wide. It's about 3.5 inches, so chances are I'm not going to miss anything with the screws. It's going to make it into the wood. But when I screw into the chine on the outer edges, you'll notice that this is actually fairly thin. And when I put the screws in, I want it to be right in the middle. And since this is only 3/4 of an inch, or 18 or 19 millimeters wide, it's only half that trying to get the screw in the middle. And when you have plywood over the top and trying to get it in place accurately, I'm trying to avoid misplacing a screw and having it go into the bottom of the boat and stick up inside. I want it to be able to go into the chine so it's actually grabbing and pulling the bottom panel into place and getting a good seal, even though I am using adhesive. The other thing is too, is you don't want to go too far to the outside. I don't want it going into the plywood panel on the outside, which is about 1/2 inch thick, around 12 millimeter, 12.5 millimeter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a tool. That's what, I just take a random piece of scrap wood here. And you notice that if I just held a piece of wood up along this edge and I had my drill at the same angle, I'd have the proper angle going into the chine. But the problem is I wouldn't know what width, at what point. I'm going to make a tool which will be fairly accurate no matter where I place it, anywhere around the side when I'm putting the bottom panels on. First of all, I want to have it, I know I have 3/4 of an inch thick coming up, and I want to leave myself a little bit of meat up here. And the reason for that, I'm going to make this fairly wide. It's going to be more than 3/4 of an inch because I have more angle here than I do up there, and no matter what angle this is going to take, the plywood is coming straight across, so I just want to have enough clearance so that it fits no matter what. And I'm going to come in so far, so you can see this, I'm going to come in like this. I'm going to cut a void out of there. But the idea is, whatever distance I have, I want to come in 3/8 of an inch on the chine, but I also have a 1/2 inch here, so I have to allow for this skin. And I want to make it so that this part here, this edge, is going to be right here in the middle. You'll see what I'm doing. It's easier to show you than it is to try to explain it. When I have a cutout, I'll have a cutout going down here. The cutout will be going right here. I'll be cutting this out right here so that that will fit against the edge, and this outer edge will be right where I want it, so I can place a pencil and I'll be able to mark it with a pencil as I go along, and I can just space out the screws wherever I want. And when I go to use the screw, I can just place this on here and use the same angle, and it should go precisely, exactly right where I want it and at the proper angle. As I said, it's just a whole lot easier to show you. I'll show you the tool and you'll see what it looks like, and then it'll all click. And you have to allow enough room because the plywood is going to overhang a little bit proud. I always cut it a little bit extra, and then I just plane and sand flush after it's already installed. It gives me a little bit of wiggle room, and that eliminates any mistakes you might make. A little extra work, but it's worth it. We'll make a measurement, we'll go to work. Okay, I have the piece cut out. You can see the shape, and you can see what I'm talking about here. When I put this against the hull, this comes right down in the middle of the chine, and it doesn't matter. When I have, here's a piece of scrap plywood. If this were a bottom panel, of course it would be maybe a little bit proud here when I first install it. And I can bring this along here and make a pencil mark. That's exactly where I'm going to put the screw, and I'm going to also use this as a guide for my drill when I'm driving the screw in, or using the countersink first, of course. You can see how that works. This is going to work everywhere on the hull with the exception of the transom. In just a moment I'm going to show you why. As you can see, the transom has a much more radical angle than the side panels do. So when I try to do this, if I put a screw there, I'm right at the very edge of that cleat. I'm almost right at the very edge of the transom panel because of that angle. It's too radical. So what I have to do is, I have to make another one of these, but instead, this is good for the sides, but for the transom, I have to make another one, and instead, I'm going to make my cut in like this. This has to come out a little bit further, extended further, so I can have it right in the middle. I have to just make a measurement to find out where I have to make the new one. And that's all there is to that. And of course, if I cut it like this, then I have clearance for the plywood when the bottom panel comes out. See, it wouldn't fit like that now. So it's just a slight variation, a slight, same tool, same concept, just a slightly different angle in the cutout area, the clearance area, and a little bit longer out here, different measurement. But that's it. So I'll make another one for the transom, and that's all I need. Two tools, this one for the side panels, one similar for the transom, and now I can locate all my screws all the way around. Well, I just came back from the shop and I made another template, or gauge I should say, special tool, and this is to locate the screws across the bottom panels at the transom. So now they will be precisely located right in the center of the cleat, and if I follow this angle with the drill, it'll be exactly right where it needs to be. And when I have that piece of plywood here, I have a little bit of extra room if it overhangs just a tad, and I can put it right where it needs to be, and it's going to be precise. I'll have the exact location where the screw needs to be at the proper angle each and every time. So I'll always get good contact, plenty of solid meat, good holding power. And that's how we do it. So this gauge and the other gauge for the side panels, those are the only two you need for fitting the bottom panels on a plywood boat.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Early in the morning, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises. Early in the morning, putting in the longboat until the